Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a deep dive into drug development. You might think it's all about those eureka moments and big scientific discoveries, but the reality is um, uh, way more complex and risky.
Yeah, definitely. It really is. The journey of a new drug, like from a scientist's initial idea in the lab all the way to your medicine cabinet, it's paved with more failures than you might think.
More failures.
Really? Oh, yeah. In fact, most drug candidates never even make it to market.
Wow. That's a pretty sobering thought.
It is.
So for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at pharmaceutical product development, in vitro, in vivo correlation, and we're going to explore like why those failures happen. But maybe even more important than that, what we can learn from them. It's like,
Yeah.
you learn more from your mistakes than your successes, right?
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. And especially in the world of pharmaceuticals, it's high stakes. Developing a new drug can take like over a decade, and it can cost literally billions of dollars.
Billions, wow.
So understanding those failures, those missteps along the way, is super crucial to making the whole process smarter, faster, and getting safe and effective treatments to patients.
Right. Okay, so let's unpack this. What are some of the most common reasons why drug candidates fail?
Okay, well, the most obvious one, and that's safety. A drug might just sail through early testing, everything looks good, but then later you find unexpected side effects that are just, too risky for patients.
Right, right, of course. You wouldn't want to release a drug that's going to cause more harm than good, no matter how promising it seems at first. So what else can kind of trip these drug candidates up?
Okay, so another big one is efficacy. A drug can look amazing, really great on paper in early trials, but then when you get to larger groups of people, it doesn't deliver the therapeutic punch that researchers were hoping for.
So it's like a movie trailer that promises an action-packed blockbuster, but then the actual film is a total dud.
Exactly, you got it. And then you have technical challenges, which can be really frustrating. You might have problems scaling up the manufacturing process, or the drug's formulation, how the drug is
Yeah.
delivered might not be right.
Ah,
It's kind of like having all the right ingredients to make a delicious cake, but your recipe's not quite right, so you end up with a soggy mess.
yuck. Okay, so how does this book that we're looking at today, with its focus on in vitro and in vivo correlation, how does that help researchers like navigate all of these potential problems?
Well, one of the key takeaways is that it's really important to understand how a drug behaves in a controlled lab setting, so in vitro, and then how it performs in a living organism, in vivo.
Yeah.
By bridging that gap, you can really get a better handle on those safety, efficacy, and technical issues early on in the development process.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's kind of like a dress rehearsal before a play opens. So they can
Yeah.
work out all the kinks before the real show.
That's a great way to think about it. And something else that's really important, and the book dives into this, is formulation. It's not just about getting the drug into the body, it's about getting it to the right place in the right amount at the right time. Think of it like a delivery service. It needs to get a package to the right address, undamaged and on time.
Okay, that's a good analogy. So how a drug is like formulated, you know, is it a pill, an injection, a patch, a nasal spray that can really make a difference in how well it works?
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference. And this is super important for drugs that are meant for like long-term treatment, where you really need reliable, consistent delivery. Because if the formulation is off, you run into a lot of problems, reduced effectiveness, or maybe even worse side effects.
Oh, wow. So you're saying that if the drug has, the potential to be like a total game changer, if the delivery system is poorly designed, it can just completely tank its chances of success.
That's exactly right. And that's why so much time and effort goes into like fine-tuning formulations and testing them rigorously, both in vitro and in vivo.
Wow. Okay. It sounds like um it sounds like they're trying to crack a complex code,
Yeah.
trying to find that perfect combination of ingredients and delivery methods to really unlock a drug's full potential. But how do they even start to predict if a drug has a chance, like a fighting chance, of making it through this whole process?
Well, there's a bunch of different tools and models they use, and this book focuses on one that's really interesting. It's called the maximum absorbable dose, or the MAD number.
The MAD number, what's that?
Okay, so it's this calculation that takes into account the drug's solubility, how well it dissolves in your stomach and intestines, how fast it gets absorbed into the bloodstream, and how long it stays in your system.
So it's kind of like a fuel gauge for medication.
Yeah.
Like telling you how much of the drug your body can take in and use.
Exactly, you got it. And what's really fascinating is that even some common medications have surprisingly low MAD numbers, which might explain why they're not as effective as we might hope.
Hmm. So are you saying that, like, even if you take a higher dose of a medicine, your body might not be able to absorb and use all of that extra?
That's exactly what the MAD number suggests. It shows how important it is to really understand a drug's absorption, because just like upping the dose isn't always the solution.
This making me rethink, like, everything I thought I knew about medicine. So if this MAD number is so important, how do they, like, measure it? Do they have some super high-tech equipment that can, like, track each molecule of a drug through the body?
Well, it's not quite that simple, but they do use a mix of lab techniques and math models to estimate the MAD number. They look at how the drug dissolves in different solutions, how it interacts with cells and tissues, how it's metabolized and eliminated from the body.
Huh. So it's kind of like detective work. Like, you're piecing together clues from different places to try and see the bigger picture of how a drug behaves.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And as they gather more data, their models get more refined and they get a clearer picture of the drug's potential and its limitations.
So it sounds like those early failures, the ones that don't make the headlines, those can actually provide a lot of really valuable insights for future strategies and lead to more successful outcomes.
Definitely. Each failure, it's a chance to learn, to adapt, and improve the whole process. It's about turning setbacks into, like stepping stones to get to better treatments.
Wow, that's amazing. So we're really getting a behind-the-scenes look at the incredible amount of research and effort that goes into just developing the medicines that we take every day.
That's right. It's a constant process of discovery and refinement. And those failures, they're not the end. They're part of the journey toward better health.
That's really cool. Okay, so we've talked a lot about solubility, and it sounds like that plays a key role in how a drug is absorbed. But what about permeability? How does that fit into all this?
Yeah, so permeability it's the other half of the puzzle when it comes to absorption. So permeability refers to how easily a drug can pass through the walls of your intestines and into your bloodstream.
Okay, so if solubility is like getting a key to unlock the door, permeability is making sure that the door is actually wide enough to walk through.
You got it. That's a great way to put it. And just like a door can be too narrow, certain drugs have trouble crossing those barriers, even if they dissolve well in your digestive system.
Huh. This reminds me of like those escape rooms where you have to solve all these puzzles to unlock the exit.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like drug absorption is its own kind of escape room, with solubility and permeability as the keys to get out.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And just like in an escape room, teamwork and strategy are key. Researchers need to think about both solubility and permeability when they're designing medications.
So are you saying that some drugs might be like super soluble, but struggle to get through those intestinal walls, while others might be really good at permeating, but then they have a hard time dissolving in the first place?
Exactly. And that's where the biopharmaceutics classification system comes in, or BCS for short.
The BCS. Okay, now that sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Okay, so the BCS, it's a system that puts drugs into categories based on their solubility and permeability. And it helps researchers make the drug approval process, well, a little bit smoother. And it helps them find potential challenges early on.
Okay, I am definitely hooked. Let's unpack this BCS and see how it helps researchers navigate this whole world of drug absorption.
All right, let's do it. So the biopharmaceutics classification system, the BCS, ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it. It sounds like this BCS is like a sorting hat for drugs, like in Harry Potter.
Oh,
It
yeah.
puts them into different categories based on their magical properties, or in this case, their solubility and permeability. So how does it work, this sorting hat?
Okay, so imagine like a grid, okay? Solubility is on one axis and permeability is on the other. The BCS takes drugs and divides them into 4 classes depending on where they land on this grid.
Okay, I'm picturing it. So what are the classes?
All right, so you have class 1 drugs. Those are like the stars of the show. They have high solubility and high permeability. They dissolve really easily in your gut, no problem getting through those intestinal walls and right into the bloodstream. They're like the overachievers.
Oh, so they're like the VIPs. They get the red carpet treatment all the way into the bloodstream.
Exactly. And from a formulation standpoint, they're easy to work with. Now, class 2 is a little different. They have low solubility but high permeability, so they can get through those barriers, but it's harder to get them to dissolve properly.
So it's like having a really powerful engine, but a really, really clunky transmission.
Yeah, that's a good way to put
You
it.
got to figure out how to harness all that power.
Exactly. So that's where those clever formulation strategies come in. Researchers might, like, make the drug particles smaller or add, like, special ingredients, excipients, I think they're called, to make it dissolve better and get absorbed better.
Huh. This is making me realize how much goes into just designing a simple pill, you know?
It's really complex.
Okay, so what about class 3? You said those were the high solubility, low permeability drugs. What are they like?
Those are the ones that dissolve really well, but then they, like, hit a wall, literally, when they try to cross over into the bloodstream. Like, you've got a smooth on-ramp to the highway, but then there's a huge traffic jam.
Hmm, frustrating. So how do researchers get around that?
Well, that's where things can get a little bit tricky. They might try, different delivery methods like injections or those patches that you stick on your skin to kind of bypass the gut altogether. Or, maybe they try to find a way to make the drug better at like sneaking through those cell membranes, like by adding something to the formulation to like boost its penetrating power.
So it's all about finding workarounds to those delivery challenges.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one class left. What about those low solubility, low permeability drugs? That was class 4, right?
Yeah, class 4. And yeah, those are, well, they're the toughest ones. They're the real problem children. They have trouble dissolving A and D being absorbed. It's like, trying to drive a beat-up old car up a mountain during a blizzard.
Oh, yikes. Not a good situation.
No. So yeah, finding a good formulation for those drugs, that can be a real uphill battle.
So are class 4 drugs like a lost cause?
Yeah.
Do any of them ever make it to, to market?
It's way harder for sure, but it's not impossible. There are like all kinds of really smart people out there working on new technologies,
Mm.
nanoparticles, liposomes, even things like gene therapy to try and get over those solubility and permeability hurdles.
Wow, it's incredible all the work that goes into this stuff. You mentioned before that the BCS streamlines the drug approval process, right? Like how does it do that?
Yeah, so for those class 1 drugs, the ones that are like really well behaved, the approval process is usually, well, it's a bit easier. They're absorbed so well that you can get away with simpler studies to show that they're safe and that they work.
Okay, that makes sense. So less hassle for researchers and hopefully patients get access to new treatments more quickly.
Right.
But what about the other classes? Do they get stuck in regulatory limbo?
Not necessarily, no. The BCS, it really helps researchers, kind of see potential problems coming and adapt their strategies. Like if they know a drug is class 2 with that low solubility but high permeability, they can really focus on, you know, tweaking the formulation to make the dissolving part better.
So it's like having a roadmap for drug development. It shows where the bumps in the road might be
Yeah.
and helps them find the best route.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it.
And all of this helps patients in the end,
Great.
right? Because it makes sure that those pills or injections are, well, they're formulated and delivered in the safest and most effective way possible.
Exactly. The BCS isn't just like some abstract scientific thing, It has real-world consequences for the medicines we depend on.
This is really giving me a new perspective on the whole pharmaceutical industry. But even with this BCS system and that MAD number we talked about, it feels like there's still a lot we don't know about how drugs work in the body, right?
Oh, for sure. These are just tools, right? They're a starting point. But the real key is combining those insights with like a deep understanding of how drugs are absorbed and distributed and metabolized and all of that, those dynamic processes.
So it's not just about crunching numbers and looking at data. It's understanding the dance between chemistry and biology, like how they work together to determine how a drug behaves.
Yeah.
Are you saying that those early failures in drug development, those actually help us understand that better?
Exactly. You're absolutely right. Those failures, the setbacks, they force researchers to go back and refine their models and question what they thought they knew. And in the end, that helps them get a better understanding of how to make really effective medications. It's all about learning from your mistakes and pushing those scientific boundaries.
It's like those failures, they're whispering secrets, showing us hidden paths and unexpected problems that we need to solve to make better treatments. Okay, I think I'm starting to see the big picture here. Drug development, it's this intricate dance between scientific knowledge, creative problem solving, and being okay with failing, because that's how we learn.
That's a perfect way to put it. And it's all driven by, that one big goal to improve people's health and well-being.
This deep dive has been incredible. But before we wrap things up, I have one more question that's been kind of bugging me. We've been talking about how a drug gets into the bloodstream, but what happens after that? How does it get to where it needs to go in the body? What are the things that can affect that journey?
That's a great question. And that takes us to the world of pharmacokinetics. That's all about how drugs move through the body. But before we go there, maybe we should take a minute to, think about what we've learned so far. Let everything sink in a little.
Okay, yeah, little mental break sounds good. We'll be right back to explore the next stage of the drug's adventure. All right, so we're back and ready to keep going with our deep dive into drug development. You've walked us through this whole maze of solubility and permeability and the BCS, and now I really want to know what happens after a drug actually makes it past that absorption obstacle course.
Right. So that's where pharmacokinetics comes in. Basically, it's the study of how drugs move throughout the body, how they're absorbed, how they're distributed, metabolized, and eventually eliminated. Kind of like tracking a package from the warehouse to its final destination.
Okay, so if we go back to that delivery service idea that we were using before, it's like,
Yeah.
we've just gotten the package delivered to the front door, but now we have to follow it inside and see how it gets to the right room.
Right. Exactly. And just like a package can run into detours or roadblocks along the way,
Mm.
a drug might have trouble getting to where it needs to go in the body. It might, run into some enzymes in the liver that want to break it down, or maybe it'll bind to proteins in the blood, which makes it harder to move around.
Wow, so even when a drug gets into the bloodstream, it's still not like home free, right? It's like going through all these checkpoints, all these biological security measures.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why understanding from for making drugs that actually work, researchers have to think about not just how well the drug gets absorbed, but also, what it does once it's in the body, how it interacts with different organs, and how it finally gets eliminated.
So it's like designing a delivery system that, can get that package to the right house, to the right room, make sure it gets opened at the right time and used correctly.
Exactly, a perfect analogy. And that's really why drug development is so complex. It's not just about, chemistry and biology. It's also physiology, even physics. It's about, solving all these puzzles, being prepared for problems, and figuring out how to get the right amount of the drug to the right place at the right time.
So what you're saying is the success of a drug doesn't just depend on those inherent properties like the solubility and permeability stuff we talked about, but it also depends on how it moves through this whole network of biological pathways and processes.
You got it. It's a real balancing act, and that's, one of the big reasons why drug development is so hard and why so many drugs that look promising just, they fail at some point.
This has been so fascinating. I never realized how much goes into creating the medicines that we take every day.
It really is incredible. It's testament to human ingenuity and how much we want to improve our health. And even though most drugs never even make it to market, every single failure teaches us something. Every setback, it helps to pave the way for new discoveries, for breakthroughs.
Wow. So, okay, there you have it, folks. We've gone on this whirlwind tour of the world of drug development from those early stages in the lab all the way to that moment when you take a pill or get an injection. We talked about solubility, permeability, the BCS, the challenges of creating the right formulation and getting the drug to the right place, and of course the importance of understanding pharmacokinetics to see how the drug actually works in your body.
Absolutely. And I hope, after this deep dive that you have a new appreciation for how complex it is to bring new medicines to the world. Those tiny pills that we take, they represent years and years of research, countless experiments, and the commitment of so many scientists and researchers.
And remember, there's always so much more to learn. So, keep those questions coming. We'll be back with another deep dive into the world of science soon.